Hello everyone, how's it going? So today we're talking about Mass Effect Andromeda. Now look, this game isn't the best game out there. It's definitely on the low point of the Mass Effect franchise, but it's not the worst thing ever. Look, I'm a huge Mass Effect fan. I've 100%ed every single Mass Effect game out there. But yeah, this game did not hit the mark. It had a lot of problems. The development was just filled with issues. They were going for procedural generation, which was the new trend back in the day to try and cut costs in order to create worlds through just AI generation, essentially. And, well, you can see what happened with No Man's Sky when it first launched. If you were alive back then or experienced that 1.0 release, that was a disaster. But unlike No Man's Sky, which eventually fixed it and has become the gold standard for that type of exploration game, Mass Effect Andromeda just had a horrible development with that, and once they realized it wasn't going to work, they pivoted to more routine world generation, and it was basically crunch all over at BioWare. I believe they had 18 months to make this game work, and yeah, it was just a disaster when it launched, filled with so many different problems. But once they resolved, I would say, a decent amount of the issues, the game was average. You can still see from the mixed results that there's still a lot of bugs and problems with this game, but it's not the worst thing in the world. I think it had potential, but it's been about 10 years. There's no way we're getting a sequel to this. Heck, BioWare is working on Mass Effect 5, which is technically a sequel to the Milky Way trilogy, so I guess it would be Mass Effect 4. But we haven't heard anything about that for many years, despite all the little snippets they're giving of that game. And then there's also the disaster that was Dragon Age the Veilguards, which likely didn't help BioWare's case about keeping them alive. And Mass Effect 5 is heavily hinted to be their make it or break it game. But why am I talking about this? Well, the voice actor for Ryder, the male Ryder for Mass Effect Andromeda, came out with an interview. And the interview is decent enough. He goes on to talk about his experience working on Mass Effect Andromeda, talks about how he keeps in touch with other people, and puts the nail in the coffin when it comes to the Quarian DLC rumor. So there was a rumor that they were going to release new DLC for the game regarding the Quarian arc, which had Drell, Quarians, Hanar on it. They released it as a comic, but he went on to confirm that there was no voice acting done for that supposed DLC. It was completely just rumor mills and people hoping that it would be a real thing, like myself. But but I think what really just kind of soured the entire interview was this section right here. So he was asked, how did you perceive the game today with some distance from its release? I think, like many, the game got a bum rap. It was done dirty by a publisher expecting too much from it, and it had not being fully cooked, forced out the door too early, forced to use corporate's shiny new engine when many of the team didn't know how to work it, and it was not suited for the storytelling part of the game. Now, what he's referring to is Frostbite 3, which is what EA was forcing all their game developers to use instead of using, say, Unreal Engine or any other third-party engine where they would actually have to pay a fee. And Frostbite is great for Battlefield. It's made for Battlefield, but it's not great for a storytelling RPG third-person shooter, as he stated. He's absolutely right on that. It's like I forgot where I heard this. It's like a Formula 1 racer. It's good for what it's designed to do, but you put that on a dirt track, it'll still run, but it'll do very horribly. But yeah, he is right about this, but I think this part is where he kind of goes off a little tangent. He goes off his rocker here. On top of that, it was released it was released to a very toxic atmosphere online and elsewhere in the game and space. It quickly became a punching bag of the week for online chuds for views and clicks. Their love and hate have sealed the deal. What saddens me is that would not be the last time I was in a project doomed by online haters picking up a game for punching bag of the week. I also worked on High Guard. Now, a lot of things to unpack there. Like, look, I like Mass Effect Andromeda, but you can't excuse the technical issues that this game had. And yes, that was because EA did force them on Frostbite. It was because of procedure generation. Like, I'm not going to excuse that EA didn't play their part here. They definitely did. But you can't ignore that the game's writing was also not on par with what people expected from the Mass Effect franchise. Liam was one of the most unpopular, devoid of charisma characters you can think of. Most of the characters people liked had remnants of other characters. For example, Vetra was basically Tali and Garrus. Drax was the only character that people really loved because he felt actually like a Mass Effect character. Everyone else was trying so hard to be a Marvel-like comedian. Like, when you play through the game, it was so remnant to MCU jokes that everyone needed to be funny. It was just really tedious and pretentious. Like, they lacked that type of gritty personality that you expect from a varied crew. Like Garrus, Tali, even Caden, they all had distinct personalities. Not all of them needed to be jokesters, but they just had to do that. That's why Drax was a little more endearing, because he actually felt like a Krogan, whereas Vetra, she didn't really feel like a Turian. But when he says punching bag of the week, that makes no sense. Heck, Valve even came out with a statement stating that there is no secret formula to making a lot of money on Steam. You make a good game, word of mouth will spread, and people will tell you to buy the game. It works in both directions. In fact, I'll use another example. This is a bit of an old example, but Game Boy Pocket, this is my original Game Boy Pocket, Pokemon Red version. Now, the reason this game was so successful, like, yeah, there were online publications and there were magazines back in the day where you had to spend $20 and beg your parents to get you that magazine. But the real reason I guarantee that a lot of people bought this game was because their friends, their family, all were playing the game. They brought it to the schoolyard. They showed their friends, and they would look over their shoulder while they played the game, and they would talk nothing but good things about it. Word of mouth spread, and everyone begged their parents to get Pokemon Red version. The same thing is still true to this day. You make a good game, people will talk about it, they'll send videos out there, they'll talk about it on Steam, saying, hey, this game is incredible. They won't post stuff like this. So when he says this stuff, it's complete BS. When you make a good game, word of mouth spreads, people talk about it more, and then eventually it reaches mass success. They don't care about anything else. They just want to know, is the game good? Is the game fun? Does the game have a good story? If they're into that, I like a good story. But none of that was true, because the first thing that a lot of people talked about when it came to Mass Effect Andromeda were all the technical problems, all the glitches. And even when they said those, even when you went beyond that, it was the writing, it was the poor world design, it was the Krogans. Like, the literal female Krogans look like knockoffs of supernatural demons. They just look so weird. I think a lot of us remember, if you played Mass Effect Andromeda when it first came out, the infamous quote, "My face is tired." Like, that woman who was just, I can't remember her name, but she was just so damn annoying that it was just like all the faces looked off. The voice acting wasn't there. The body movements between characters, they actually felt like a downgrade compared to Mass Effect 3. When you put on Mass Effect 3 and compare it to Mass Effect Andromeda, you will think that Mass Effect 3, even on the original Xbox 360, looked better than whatever Mass Effect Andromeda was doing, because they cut so many corners. And yeah, again, it was EA's fault. Like, all about the game was just flaw after flaw, long loading times, poor mechanics. As much as I enjoyed the combat for the game, it did make the whole dedicated choice between what options you choose completely non-existent. Whereas in the original games, if you chose Engineer, Soldier, Vanguard, you were limited in your pool of skills to encourage other playthroughs. And while I did enjoy this new system of Mass Effect Andromeda, it had its flaws. Like, saying that Chuds made this game completely fall apart is just ridiculous. And the fact that he said, I also worked on Highguard, and he's bringing in that entire argument into it, shows that I think he's just angry. Like, you can be angry, but you can't ignore facts. Highguard was also a poorly received game. It was boring, it was tedious, it had very little progression, the maps were too big, even the 5 versus 5 mode just didn't save the game. The game fell completely because everyone who tried the game, because he was given the golden spotlight by Jeff Keighley, still couldn't save this game, because the game, like I stated, was boring. In the case of Mass Effect Andromeda, it wasn't a boring game, but it was a technically flawed game. Even to this day, we can just look at the reviews. I love the Mass Effect universe, but I sadly cannot recommend this game. Visual bugs that affect the gameplay. I've been soft locked a few times. Like, yeah, a lot of people are saying, like, it's still the technical problems with this game. Like, if they tried to make this game, instead of focusing on procedural generation, and actually try to make a good Mass Effect game with, you know, stick to what worked, it probably would have been received better, and we would have had Mass Effect Andromeda 2, and I wouldn't be left with secrets about what the Remnant are, what the Scourge were, about the Ungaran, the Ket, all that. Like I said, this game has a lot of really cool mysteries to it, but we'll never get answers to that unless they're going to pull like a swap of Voo with Mass Effect 5 and say, like, hey, part of it is set in the original Sol system and the Milky Way system, or this is, you know, somehow connected to Andromeda. I don't know. Like, at this point, it does really make me sad that we're not getting an Andromeda 2 and Mass Effect 5. We haven't heard anything about this, but this right here, the wrong direction, man. It just seems like you are really angry about what happened, but it's not because of Chuds. It's not because of other people out to get you. The game just simply did not live up to the standards, and ultimately it's up to the publisher to decide whether a game gets a sequel or not, and this game didn't meet EA's very, very high standards. I think it had to sell like $6 to $9 million, nice, 6 to 9 million copies, and I think it only sold around 3 million copies, because there aren't real numbers about this, but I've seen numbers between that, but definitely it seems that way. But tell me what you think in the comments below about this. Did you play Mass Effect Andromeda? Did you enjoy it? I just think this entire quote is very ridiculous. The rest of the interview is fine, but this right here, it just sounds like you're angry, man, and I hate to say it, but sometimes things work out and sometimes they don't. And again, this is coming from a little fan. I have the Mass Effect helmet right there, wearable, just to prove it. And I got posters. I bought the game multiple times. This is coming from a fan. It's sad, but it's life. That's it for me.